Okay, welcome everyone. It is 11:05 Central Time, so I do believe we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to our Red Team webinar series. My name is Sarah Nyheisel. I'm going to be walking everyone today through the project startup part 1 for our Red Team Flex software. So what we're going to be looking at today is going to be general navigation of a Red Team Flex database. So I'll be walking you through all of the buttons and menus that you're seeing here along the top, and the left-hand side we'll be walking through all the ins and outs of these general menus and what the overall capabilities are for you here with Red Team Flex. I also have Austin on the line here. He's going to be monitoring our chat for us. So please feel free to drop questions in the chat or put questions in the Q&A if you would like. Austin's going to be keeping an eye on those for us, and he will let me know as we kind of pause through each section, and we'll go ahead and answer those questions as you have them. So with that said, I am going to be starting here on the company dashboard. So what you're seeing today is our training database. This is what your Red Team database will look like if you have one with Red Team Flex. Every time that you log in, you're going to find yourself here on what we call the company dashboard. Now, what you're seeing is a set of customizable tiles that's going to be able to give you an overview of what's going on across your projects. So as you first log in, you'll see a set of tiles that is configured to your permissions role. So I am logged in as a system administrator, meaning I'm seeing all possible dashboard tiles right now. And what I can do is I can go ahead and click to open in a new tab more information for any of these items. So I can go ahead and see, for example, my inboxes. I can see my invoices that are awaiting my approval, expenses for employees that may be waiting my approval, my to-do lists in terms of action items, which are generic tasks, submittals, and RFIs. All sorts of good information here. And those little go-to manage buttons are going to allow me to open up, pop-up windows where I can see, for example, as an administrator, I can see who's logged into our training database right now. Now, if I don't prefer to see any of these items, I can go ahead and remove that tile. That's customizable to me as a user. So I can go ahead and click the remove button and no longer see my work in progress tile or whatever I would prefer. I can also click and drag. If I want to rearrange these tiles and have them in different locations, I can swap. Now, let's say as a user, I change my mind. I'd like to come add back in some of those tiles that I chose to remove. All the tiles that you have permission to see as a user will be here under the add button if you've removed them. So you can just click to bring those back in. Now, the other thing that you'll be able to see here on this dashboard menu is the news feed. So I can swap from company dashboard to news feed here. This is going to be showing me actions that have been taken recently on my projects that I'm a part of. So again, as an administrator today, I'm able to see every action that's been taken on all projects. As opposed to if I was a project manager or a superintendent, my permissions would dictate that I'm going to see just those projects that I am a part of or that I have access to. So as I scroll down, I can see the name of the project. I can see the name of the individual. We can see Jennifer here was creating some invoices yesterday, right? About a day ago. If I hover, I can see the date and time stamp on that action. So as you're looking through these actions that have been taken, you can go ahead and reply if you have questions. If you see daily progress reports, you're going to be able to click in to those photos that were added, or here I can click to view the full progress report. And I can also click on the name of the project to just jump into that project and start taking action. So lots of good things we can do here from the dashboard, viewing overview information or taking a look at that news feed. So any questions here at the moment on our dashboard before we look at some shortcuts up top here?
No questions so far.
No questions at the moment. Thanks, Austin. We're going to keep rolling then. Again, feel free to drop those in the chat as we go. The next stop here is we're going to walk through our shortcut buttons up on the top menu bar. Now, this menu bar is going to follow you no matter what page you're on in Red Team. You can always look up here at this black menu bar and see these same options. So the first one is our new icon. We can go ahead and click that plus symbol. to get some shortcuts to create new items without having to go any further into the database. So I can add new contacts to my database, new opportunities, which we're going to talk about the difference between an opportunity and a project today. That's kind of a pre-project, or an opportunity is a business development opportunity. We can add new projects from here. We can upload new vendor invoices if I'm someone in administration or in finance that needs to be uploading invoices as I receive them. I can do that here. We also have time and expense links here where we can go ahead and, as an employee, I can add time to my time card or submit expenses very quickly and easily. So that will follow you throughout RedTeam. You've got your releases icon here. I can go ahead and take a look at our latest product releases. You can see 1103 in that red bubble is telling me that that's the latest release information we have. So that's actually just letting everyone know that we've got a new integration between RedTeam Flex and Field Lens, which is another one of our products, excuse me, that focuses on job site collaboration. So those are now integrating, and we've got an upcoming webinar for that. So if you'd like to attend, you can go ahead and register right here. Otherwise, in this link, what you're generally going to be seeing is our bi-monthly product updates, or what we call releases. So you can come in here and see our latest one was in October. Our next one will be in December. You've got an overview here, a summary of the changes that we made, and a PDF document with screenshots to give you more information on those changes and what great new features that you can use. So I definitely recommend coming in there. And if you see, the date change, then you'll know there's a new release for you to come take a look at. Your administrators will also get an email regarding each release before that happens. The next link here is our plan room. That is a link to the online plan room generically for your database. So what that means is each of your projects in RedTeam is going to have its own online plan room individual to that project. And that's where you can choose to share pieces of the project, such as plans and specs, RFIs, submittal information, and schedules, just to name a few things. But that allows you to share that type of information with folks external to your company so that they don't need to have a RedTeam login to view pertinent pieces of the project. So what I would do is I would email this link out to a vendor, a customer, an architect or engineer, anyone that I'd like. And when they click on the link, it says go to plan room here. That's what they're going to see, is this login screen. So all they need is the project number and their basic information to enter that project plan room. This is helpful because your vendors who may be working with you on multiple projects, or if you have a customer for whom you're performing multiple projects, you can send them one link and they'll be able to get into those 3 or 4 different plan rooms just from this same link. So you can send that out anytime you'd like. For those of you who have the correct permissions, administrators or anyone else who's designated with that permission, you can see the bounced emails link here. That's going to allow you to see any emails that didn't reach their destination, and you can go ahead and click to edit whether you maybe sent those to the incorrect email address or whatever the case may be. You can readdress those and send them back out. Transactions here is going to allow you to shortcut to your transactions menu, which we'll be talking about today. And if you are using an integrated accounting software, that's going to allow you to see very quickly any transactions that had an issue flowing across that integration. Action items here is going to allow you to see your outstanding action items or tasks, right? So an action item in RedTeam is a generic task that can be assigned to an individual person. So if I click here, I can see I've got 15 open action items. And I can go ahead and see in this case, I've been authorized to work 40 hours on a project. So it's just letting me know. And I can go ahead and click this little bubble over on the right-hand side to close that task out if I'm finished with it. It's going to ask me if I'm sure. So some of these will pop up automatically. Generally, things like if you get a labor authorization so that you're aware of the hours you've been authorized to work, if you get a submittal item that you sent out is returned, or an RFI, you may see those tasks pop up to say, hey, it's time for you to review the answer that came back. Otherwise, you can create manual action items for yourself or others right here. We can say create new action item. And again, if I have the permission to do so, I can create tasks for others within my database. So I can go ahead and relate this task to a company or to a project. If I relate it to a company, then it's outside of a particular project. I could say, maybe my architect or my plumber. I need to go ahead and assign it to someone within that company and ask them to perform a task that does not relate to a project. If it is related to a project, I can say so, and I can go ahead and search for or select the project number. And then that allows me to go ahead and assign the task to anyone who's on the project team. So I can go ahead and say I need Will to take care of something, and I can describe the task in detail right here, right? So you can drag down that right-hand corner. You've got plenty of space. Give him a due date and drag and drop any files that may assist him in completing that task. Now you also have your company confidential option here, which is allowing you to keep that internal to your company, if you will. So in terms of an action item, what that's doing is allowing you to say, I would like to keep this confidential in terms of I would not like it to show up on my project reporting. So if you're pulling project reports on action items, you can keep these confidential items off. You can also control which employees are allowed to see confidential items using your permission. So your administrators can say, hey, maybe only project managers and above can see company confidential items, whatever the case may be. Now, when I hit save on this action item, 3 things are going to happen. First, this individual, whether they are internal to my company or whether they're external, like a vendor or customer, they're going to get an email with all of the details, the due date, and the attachments. Secondly, if they are internal, if they're an employee, it's going to show up on their action items drop down right here. Now, if I was a vendor, obviously, I don't have a drop down because I don't log in. So I just get the email. And then thirdly, in either case, if it's related to a project, it's going to show up on the action items page in your project. So we'll be able to see that later down the road when we walk through our project, is that you will have an action items page where you can track all the tasks you divvied out for that project, who's responsible, what's the due date, and you'll even be able to mark them complete so that, for example, as an employee, I can mark my own tasks complete. But as a vendor or a customer, you would need to go ahead and mark it complete within the project once they let you know that they've completed that task. So action items are a great help there. Now, before we move on to the last item here, which is the account menu, Austin, are we seeing any questions here on these shortcut buttons?
No questions yet.
Perfect. Then our next stop is going to be the account menu, which you can see my name right here. If I click on that, I get my account menu. And from here, the pertinent details are I can go to my employee profile, which we'll see an example of an employee profile in a minute. I can also go to our help center, which is going to allow me to access related training content, right? So we have great training videos and wikis, which are our written instructional articles there in the help center. You can also log support tickets there if our chat is not quite the right answer, right? If you have something that's more complicated, you can log support tickets to ask for help there. Otherwise, we've got the live chat down in the corner. And then we have our log out option. So you can go ahead and log out if you're ready to end that session. Now, from there, we're going to go ahead and shift over and start kind of walking down the left side menu. But before we do, I just want you to be aware of a nice addition here that's recent for us, a way to navigate quickly to projects that you work in often. So if we drop down this menu here, you can see your company's name or company division up top here. So RedTeam Construction Company, that's our training database. And then under here, we've got recent projects. That's going to show my top 5 most recently accessed projects. And then I also have favorite projects. So you're going to see, again, those top 5 favorite projects, but you can click see all right here if you'd like to see all of your favorite projects. So just an easier way to navigate to things that you're viewing on a regular basis. And then our left side menu here is really where all the action happens. This is all the meat and potatoes of what goes on in a RedTeam database. First thing to know is that sidebar is collapsible. So if you hit this little arrow here, you can go ahead and collapse that information. And as I scroll over it, I'm still going to see it expand. That way, I just have a little more viewing space if I like, and I can roll over those icons to see the wording. Within this sidebar, you do have a search. This search option allows you to search for people, projects, and companies. So if I type in, let's go ahead and type in my name, right, I'm going to see anyone with the contact information with the name Sarah in this database, right? I can tell it's a person because it has the little people bubble next to it. Whereas if I were to type in the name or number of a project, I'm going to see that project pop up. And again, I know that that's a project because it has a little kind of crane icon, right? Whereas I could also look for a company, plumbing, right? So I can see reliable plumbing here, and those little buildings indicate that that is a company. And you can click on anybody from those search results to jump into that project or that individual's profile, that company profile. So a quick way to navigate. You see our dashboard option here. This is where we started. We can click here to return to the dashboard, that company dashboard and newsfeed at any time. The next option is the employees menu. This is where I generally like to mention that you as a user may not be seeing everything that I'm displaying today. It's going to depend on your permissions. So for example, as an administrator, I have the permissions to come in here and view employee profiles and to add new employees and edit as needed. That may not be something that every employee needs to have access to. If I, create new supervisors, superintendents, or project managers, I may give them a set of permissions that allows them to come in here and see this. But don't be alarmed if you're not seeing everything that I'm seeing today. That's going to be dictated by your permissions role. So your administrator may need to change your role in order to give you a role that allows you access, or they may need to add those permissions to your role if that's something that is required for your job description or your workflows. So assuming I have the permissions, I'm here in the employees menu, and I can see a list of all my existing employees, and I can click on their names to enter their profile. But I also like to mention here a set of buttons that are going to be pretty standard across every menu that we're going to go through today. So no matter which of these menus that we go to, in general, you're going to see these same options off to the right. The first is the new icon. That plus bubble there is going to allow me to create something new on any page. So in this case, a new employee. If I want to create a brand new employee profile, I can hit new, and I can either add a single new employee, or I can download a spreadsheet to fill out. If I've just hired a dozen new employees, I can go ahead and enter them all into that spreadsheet and upload them into RedTeam just to expedite the process. The view icon here shows you your reporting options on any given page. So if I go ahead and open that up, I can see the available reports on this page. And if I click on any of those, they will open in a separate browser tab. You've got your filter option. This little funnel is just going to allow us to go ahead and open our filter options. You'll notice we're also able to save filters on certain pages. So if I click on my filter options here, on this page, this is my set of available search filters. And as I go ahead and make my selections from the dropdowns and or checking that box there, I can choose one of three options. Filter filters the list below, but keeps my filter options open so that I can continue filtering more while I'm on this page. Filter and hide will filter the list down below and close the filter options because I'm done filtering and I just want to look at the resulting list. The third option here is available on certain pages, but not all, is to save filter. And in that case, if I'm using the same set of selections over and over, I may want to go ahead and save that filter with a name. So you can see I have white space underneath, and we'll show that in a second because I don't want to remove these filters, but I can go ahead and type in a name such as subordinates only or inactive employees, whatever search settings I've determined that I want to use often. Give it a name so that I can identify it. And then I can share that with my team, or I can keep it as a personal filter. So if I hit share, everyone who logs in to the employees menu and clicks on filter will be able to see that preset saved filter. Otherwise, it's just me. And once I save it, then when I come to this filter button in the future, you can see I've saved an inactive employees. And I know that that's a personal filter because it does not say shared over here on the right-hand side. If it says shared, then you know that everyone logging in here is able to see that filter. And if I choose not to use it again, I can go ahead and delete it. And that way I have space here to save other filters in the future. Then our last options here, the other button on this page is grayed out. On some pages, that's going to give you a few additional actions that you can take. We'll point those out as we're going through trainings here in these webinar series. But on this page, you can see there's no additional actions, so that's grayed out. And then the help menu here, you'll see this on almost every page. This allows you to open up an explanation of what this page is and what it's used for. And you can see that we give a generic explanation up top. Your company will also have the ability to edit a company-specific explanation. So if you'd like to add context for your employees as to how you utilize this page, your administrators will be able to hit that edit button and do so. But that just allows your employees to get a little more context about what this page does. So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at an existing employee profile and look at how we can access information and edit that profile. So if I click on Tim, here in Tim's profile, I can see his basic information. I can access his timesheets or his employee expenses. I can see a list of equipment that's assigned out to him currently, and I can log events or experiences that contribute to his expertise. Now, if I'd like to go ahead and edit his information, again, that requires the correct permissions. But if I have the permission to do so, I can click Edit. And that's going to allow me to scroll through all of his profile information, and I can make changes to username and password, basic contact information, and his work location. I can edit his role, which is dictating his permissions within RedTeam. So you can see Tim is a service provider administrator, which means he has the top level of permissions, but I can also come in here and add or change his role if he's a superintendent, but I also know that he performs some financial functions for us. I can stack roles on top of one another, and he could be a superintendent and a project accountant, which would allow him to have both sets of permissions simultaneously if needed. We've got some preferences that we can change if needed as far as what he's going to receive email notifications about or what items will display in his news feed on the dashboard. Those are things that he can edit himself if he goes to his individual employee profile. We can edit payroll information here. We can add assigned company credit cards. If we are using company credit cards for our employee expenses, once those cards are created, I can come here and assign them if he carries any of those cards. And we can edit his password here if needed. But most importantly, we can send Tim login information right here. So if your employees are either new or if they forget their password, you can hit send login credentials to user. And that's going to allow you to send a quick email that gives them the login link, their username and password right here. So an easy resource for your administrators to send out login info. And then down at the bottom, you've got accessibility. Now, this is an important piece because we do not delete employees once they're added to your RedTeam database. That's for the purpose of keeping track of historical information, right? So Tim has been involved in many projects with my company. He's created and sent a lot of documents. And when he leaves the company, I don't want to lose all of that data. So instead of deleting him, I'm simply inactivating him. I would uncheck the box that's going to turn off his access. He will not be able to log in using that username and password anymore. He will have no access or permissions. And from that point, we can go ahead and select from the dropdown who should replace him. So if I inactivate Tim here and I select here, I can say, well, Aaron Burr is going to go ahead and receive any remaining correspondence that may come in for Tim. That means if he sent out an RFI and now he's no longer with the company, when the answer comes back, who should be notified, right? Who should get that little action item to review it, whatever the case may be. So we'll go ahead and leave him active, but we could go ahead and make any changes we want in this profile. If we make changes, we want to hit save. If we don't, we can go ahead and hit cancel to leave without saving. Now, before we move on to the next menu, worth knowing, right, you can return to the overview menu for employees, either by clicking the word employees here or by clicking on the employees menu over here. So before we head down to equipment, Austin, are we seeing any questions on employees or anything so far?
No questions so far.
No questions so far. Great. Then our next stop for everyone is going to be equipment. This is an optional piece, an optional feature here within RedTeam. I do think it has a lot of great utility, a lot of great advantages here. This allows you to track profiles for your owned and rented equipment. So what you're going to see is it's really set up very similar to the employees menu in that each piece of equipment has its own profile the same way an employee would. And I can track information about that piece of equipment and how it's being utilized and when it's being utilized. So you can see over here on the right, we've got our same buttons. In this case, the new icon is going to allow me to create a new piece of equipment. And I can go ahead and click on that to get a field here that's going to allow me to fill in. Now, basic rule in RedTeam, if you're not aware, is that as you create something, every item that has an orange asterisk is a required piece of information. If it does not, such as make, model, serial number here, it's not required. It's an optional field if you'd like to fill it in. So you would fill in the type of equipment, owned or rented, the category of equipment. We have some defaults for you, but your administrators can add to that list. Excuse me. Your administrators can add to that list to customize if they'd like. And once we save, we can then see the equipment profile right here. So I can search through or filter through my pieces of equipment and then click on them to view the profile. Excuse me, I'm going to cough one more time here. Wow. All right. So here's our equipment profile. And we can see the basic information that we entered when we created the piece of equipment. We've also got accounting information we may have filled in. We can save credentials, which is documentation such as photos, users manuals, any other pieces of documentation we may need. We would hit edit to be able to add those, and a separate section for warranty documentation. If you'd like to keep that on file, you can keep warranty information here. You can see the assignment history for a piece of equipment. So if you are assigning that out to people in projects, this is a great way to keep track of who's responsible. If a piece of equipment is lost or damaged, you can, as you assign it out, indicate what condition it's in, indicate the expected return date, and then you can see, right, we may want to follow up on this generator because Lucas has had possession of that for several years now, and it's never been returned. That just allows you to make sure that you understand where the equipment is, what project it's being used on at any given time. Maintenance here allows you to log maintenance or service history events. So if this is my company vehicle, perhaps I'm logging oil changes and transmission flushes as those occur, and I can go ahead and indicate the cost and who provided the service, is it warranted, all of that information right here by hitting that new icon to create a new maintenance entry. Now, the great thing as we return to the overview menu here about these pieces of equipment is once they're created, we can assign them right here from the overview. Again, assuming you have the permissions. You can hit assign, and you're able to select a custodian, one of your employees, select an assigned date, any notes that you'd like, and then you can search for equipment by name or by tag, which would be, your own kind of custom ID or short name for that piece of equipment. So you can go ahead and search for it and then check box the pieces of equipment that you want to assign. You can assign multiple pieces of equipment all at the same time to this employee. And then when you're ready, you can go ahead and return equipment right here. That's going to update their employee profile as to whether or not they have possession of it. It's going to update the assignment history tab within the equipment profile. And when equipment is assigned out to a person and project, what you'll see in a later webinar is that as we fill out our daily reports for a given project, we have the ability to mark hours of usage on the pieces of equipment that are assigned to that project. So that can be a great way to track usage if you're interested in assigning those out. So that is our equipment menu. Again, your projects in RedTeam can operate just fine without utilizing this menu at all, but I do think it has some great advantages here. So any questions at all on the equipment menu so far?
Not seeing any questions yet.
Okay, feel free to drop those in, guys, even if we're past a section and you think of a question. Austin can read those off for us the next time we complete a section, and we can always go back. Companies here is our next stop. You'll notice we have 3 types of companies listed. Vendors are the folks that you are paying for goods or services. So that's going to be your subcontractors, your suppliers, anybody like that you are paying. I've even seen some folks that have, if you need to cut a check to your architect, that may show up. They may need to be in here as a vendor. Customers are the folks that are paying you. So that's who you're working for on a given project. And then third parties is going to be anybody that you're not exchanging money with. So generally our best examples there for third parties is architects, engineers, consultants. If you need to list them as an author on your plans and specs, as you're uploading them into a project, they would need to be a third party. Now, the interesting thing to note here is that one company can be more than one of these things. We recognize that your relationship with a particular company may be more complicated than I pay them or they pay me, right? And it may change depending on the project. So as you come to any one of these overview menus and you create a new company, there will be boxes for you to check. Are they a customer? Are they a vendor? Are they a third party? And in fact, I can show you that here within, let's say, Reliable Plumbing. If I click into their profile, and we'll talk over all the features of this profile in a moment, but if I click into their profile and edit, you can see as I scroll down here that I can checkbox. They are a customer. They are a vendor. They are a third party. And that's going to allow me to say they should show up on more than one of these menus because I engage in, operations where I would be paying them, but they may also be an author on some of my plans and specs, or in some cases they're a third party, some cases they're a customer. So you can reflect complicated relationships in that way without having to enter the company more than once. Now here within our vendor profile, I'm in our Reliable Plumbing vendor profile, right? This looks similar to an employee or an equipment profile. We have their basic information here, and we can click edit to change if we need. But we've also got a lot of tabs along the bottom here, and then we've got some additional pages up top. Now I want to go through the key pieces here. Contacts, of course, are the individuals at that vendor company that I may need to get in touch with. I can click right here to open up their contact profile and make edits. I can click the email button to go ahead and reach out to them by email right away. We can also go ahead and add new contacts right here to this company anytime we want. We can also store credentials on file. That's documentation for this particular vendor. So I can go ahead and add a new credential. And then I simply pick the type of document that I'm uploading. Now, again, we give you some default credential types here, but your administrators can build out a custom list. So if there's custom forms or specific forms that you need to be uploading for your vendors, you can go ahead and create those, and they'll be here in this dropdown for you to choose from. Depending on the type of document you're uploading, you may need to put in a reference number, expiration date, or an amount, such as an amount of coverage for insurance, and then attach the file right here. You can go ahead and save it. It'll be here on file, and you can see if it has an expiration date. We're going to track that for you and highlight it in red when the item has expired. You have the ability to click this download button in order to download that, view and download that attached file if you need to in the future. And you can click the tools icon here to renew an item that's expired or that you are ready to update. These next two sections here, trades and qualifications, those are great for our clients who are using the RFQ process. So if you are using our request for quote process where you would want to search for vendors to invite for particular cost codes within your estimate, these are going to be really, really helpful. Trades are simply cost codes that this vendor can perform work under. So if I say my plumbing vendor looks like they can perform a lot more work than just plumbing, right? Maybe plumbing's in their name, but they're a general contractor and they can do a lot of things. I can go ahead and add as many cost codes from my list of available cost codes as I'd like. Go to add trades. We go ahead and search through or filter through our trades by cost division. And then we simply check them off. Check the box on these cost codes that you want to add and hit save. Now, whatever is in their trades list, so let's say we have demolition in their trades list. When the time comes to invite vendors to quote for demolition on a particular project, I can say, I need a vendor who can perform demolition work. And I will get a short list of vendors who have that cost code in their trades section. So that can really help you search for vendors who can do the work you need very quickly. If you want to narrow that down even further, You've got qualifications here. This is a customizable set of search filters that you can apply to your vendors. So you can see here, we've built ourselves a list within this training database of certain qualifications. So when I hit add new, just like cost codes, I can search through my existing list of qualifications. And this is built custom. You won't see any defaults in your system. Your administrators will want to build these different types of qualifications, such as building type or location or project size, and then populate options underneath each of those categories. But once you have them built, you can go ahead and check the box so that now when I add those, I can search for someone who can do demolition work on a residential project in my Northeast region. And this 100% reliable plumbing will show up on the short list so that I can see I've got 5 vendors who fit all of those criteria, and I can invite them to quote very quickly. So really worth spending the time to come in here and fill that out, especially if you're using our request for quote process. Other important features of the vendor profile, you'll note up here that you've got these 4 options, these 4 tabs for financial information. So this is per vendor across all projects. I can see the invoices they've submitted, the payments I've dispersed to them, any commitments, which would be purchase orders or subcontracts that we have on file, and any quotes that we've requested or that they've submitted here. And then the last, now it's important to note before I move on that these pieces of information can be seen on a per project basis within each project. This is simply a great place to come if you want to view that information per vendor across their projects that they're involved in. And then the last piece that I'm going to go over here, which I think is really important, is the rating scale. You have a rating tab here in the vendor profile. You can come in and hit the new icon to give them, imagine it as a little Google or Yelp review anytime you'd like. This is internal to your database. It's not something that is going to be shared with them, so you don't have to worry about that. What this is for is I can go ahead and come in and say, you know what, they didn't do a great job today. They arrived late and left messy work site, right? So they went ahead and arrived late, didn't clean up after themselves. I go ahead and hit save. And what I can see is that that goes ahead and logs here into all the reviews that they've had over time. And that factors into their average overall rating. Now, this average rating is something that I'm going to be able to see when I'm comparing quotes side by side, or even when I'm deciding who to invite. So when you get that short list of vendors, you might say, hey, they have a pretty poor rating. I don't even want to bother inviting them to quote on this project. Or, hey, their rating looks great and they have the lowest bid. Let's go ahead and choose this vendor to go with. It just helps you make more educated decisions on who you'd like to work with over time. So those are our vendor profiles. Like I said, lots of information in here. And of course, with permissions, you can come in and edit as needed. But any questions at the moment before we proceed to customers? I think I'm
Sorry,
seeing...
no questions there.
Okay, I do think I see something in the Q&A here. Oh, okay, not a question. Perfect. Then our next stop is going to be customers here. Now, I won't go through the entire customer profile because simply for the sake of time, but we do have very similar profiles here. And as we click in, so let's say maybe ABC School District is my customer. One of the things I like to point out here that's different from the vendor profile is facilities. Facilities is an optional feature within your customer profiles. And I like to think of it as a way to break up larger repeat customers. You may not need to use this feature for all of your customers. If you're only working with them on a single project or they're a fairly small company, this may not be useful to you. But it's something to start thinking about because as I create a new customer, each customer gets one default facility that is the same name as the customer name. So ABC School District, when they were first created, they would have had one facility here titled ABC School District. That's fine. If I'm only performing one project for them, that's all I need. Whereas if I work with them on a regular basis, I can create new facilities. These are not work site locations. These are a way to break up that customer into departments or divisions, or in this case, you can see I've broken them up into types of projects because I may need to work with very different people at the school district for cafeteria projects versus gymnasium projects. So I can create a new facility that allows me to keep a different address or contact information on file. I can have different lists of people who are normally involved in those type of projects. That way, when I create a new cafeteria project for this customer, I can dictate who should auto-populate to the project team. I could also keep negotiated pricing rates on file because I may have different negotiated pricing for cafeteria projects versus gymnasium projects. Now, another good example of that I like to use is we operate out of Orlando, right? RedTeam is based in Orlando. If we were a general contractor and our client was Disney, right? Disney has 5 different parks, several water parks, training campuses, and office buildings all over the place. So what we could do is we could create various facilities, one for each park. Now, those are not worksite locations, right? I might have different work sites and different jobs within each park, but I might break that up into different parks because I need to work with different people. I bring folks from my team and different architects or engineers into those projects depending on what park I'm working in, and I might have different negotiated pricing rates. So just a couple of examples on why you may want to use facilities. Again, not required. It's something that's optional there for each of your customers if you choose to use it. So from there, we are going to proceed down to third parties, which is probably the simplest profile that you see here for companies. Third parties, our architects, our engineers, you can see an attorney in here, someone that we're not going to need to receive invoices from on a project, someone that we're not going to be billing on a project. It is, again, important that all of your architects be in here as third parties because otherwise you're not going to be able to list them as the author when you upload plans and specs. But if we look at one of these profiles, we're not tracking any financial information. So you can see all those financial tabs are gone. We're just tracking their basic information. We can keep contacts and credentials on file, and we can see, things like the projects that they're working with us on. So, but no financial information there. Now, down below companies, and I promise I'll stop for questions here at the end of that section, but down below companies, kind of related to that, is contacts. This is simply a summary of all the contacts from all the companies that we saw above. So this is everyone other than your employees. You can search through with the search bar over here on the right. You can filter with that funnel. You can go ahead and filter for folks, and then you can click into anyone's profile to see their information and edit that as needed so that if you need to change their email or address or anything like that, you can. And then you can click contacts here to come right back out to the overview. And once we filter, it's worth noting that we can go ahead and use the view icon to pull a printable copy of this if we need to create a list of people and then reach out to them. So any questions at the moment on our companies or contacts before we proceed to opportunities?
No questions yet.
Awesome. Then our next stop is opportunities. Like I said, I like to think of this as kind of a pre-project or a business development opportunity. Opportunities is another optional feature, kind of similar to the equipment menu. You can operate your database perfectly fine without it. But for those who like to keep an eye on things, on potential projects prior to the point where you would be ready to commit to creating a bid, right? If you are not ready to start uploading plans and specs, you're not ready to start building an estimate, you're uncertain if this is something you're truly going to pursue, opportunities is the right place to put that in. And what we would do is, again, hit new to go ahead and create a new opportunity. We really only need 5 pieces of information to create an opportunity. These items with the orange asterisks. So our customer, the potential company that we're working for, we can pick them. You can simply search. Notice this turns into a search bar. So if you have a lot of companies on file, you can start typing their name and they'll pop to the top. And if you have the permission to create new companies, you'll see the add new option. So you don't have to go back up and create the company first. You can simply add new companies in as you go. Pick your customer, the facility within that customer, if that's applicable. So you would either leave this as the default, or for ABC School District, right, I could go ahead and pick, if we come down here to ABC School District, I could pick that this is a cafeteria job or a gymnasium job, right? And then pick my point of contact. Who's the person at ABC School District that's going to be my main point of contact for this opportunity? And I can say, I'm going to be in touch with Melanie. I can put in an opportunity name. So we can go ahead and call this Star Elementary gym remodel. So whatever opportunity name I want to give that so that it's recognizable to me. My manager here does not need to be a project manager yet. It can be if you'd like, but this could be a business development manager or anyone else who's going to be kind of keeping tabs on or managing this opportunity as we gather information and decide if we're ready to promote it to a project and start the pre-construction process, working towards that proposal. Everything else on this page is optional. You could fill it in now. You'll be able to fill it in later or not at all. So the first one that I really want to mention is campaign. Campaign allows you to create kind of categories of opportunities. So for example, if I am working hard to pull in more business or more projects in terms of gymnasium projects, I could create a campaign called public school gymnasiums. And now I can say, well, that's, you know, something that's important to me. I'm working to develop more business in that area. And over the course, it's great for reporting purposes, right? Because over the course of 6 or 9 months, I can then go back and look and say, how many projects did I pick up under this campaign? And of those, how many became projects? How many was I, awarded the bid? And how many, was I not successful with, right? So great for kind of assessing how well you are accessing that targeted market there. We can also fill in any other information down here on start dates, bid dates, if we want, the possible value of that opportunity and a narrative, so we can describe it to ourselves, and all sorts of additional information that we may want to track. And this additional information section is actually customizable. So from your configuration menu, your administrators can go to additional scope details and add fields here if there's something that you'd like to track that you don't see. All of this information additionally will carry over should you promote this into a project. So I fill in what I know right now and I save to create my new opportunity. We're going to look at an existing opportunity. If we come to this Atlanta overhaul and we click on the name, it's going to open the profile for that opportunity. And I can see and this one's actually been promoted to a project. So we're going to look at a different one. I want to see one that has not been promoted to a project. So let's go ahead and see if we can open this Omaha ER clinic here. There we go. So if it has not been promoted to a project yet, all I'm doing is gathering information. I can hit the pencils to come in here and add information that I maybe didn't know when I first created the project. I can view who's on the project team, just the way that I could within a project. We can go ahead and come to the project team and add individuals. We can add our employees, potential customer, third party, or vendor contacts, anybody that's associated with this particular opportunity. And that allows you to have a contact list, and you can hit the tools icon to reach out to those people, whether you want to send them an email, create an action item for them, or log an upcoming event or an interaction that you've had with them. We've got a calendar here that's used to log what we call events. So events are upcoming. We can use the calendar to go ahead and create new events. Now, this isn't technically synced with external calendars, but the benefit here is that as you go ahead and create an event, anyone that you put on the guest list here, when you hit save, they're going to get an email invite, and they can go ahead and add that to their own calendar if they'd like, so that they can keep track of that. You've also got the ability to add reminders for yourself or others. You can go ahead and get an email or an action item for that, or just a pop-up, so that when you're logged into RedTeam, you get a pop-up reminder ahead of time. And then interactions here is, like I said, different from events. Events are upcoming and we log those on the calendar. Interactions would be networking interactions that have happened in the past, and we can kind of log who was involved and what we learned about this opportunity. So here you can see it allows you to add an event straight to the calendar in case you're adding something upcoming, or an interaction, which is something that has already occurred. That allows me to say, hey, anything formal or informal. It could be I sat down and had a meeting with the client for this potential project, or it could be, hey, I ran into the architect at the grocery store last night and here's what I learned. But lots of great information that you can track in here. And at any point, you can decide that you are definitely going to pursue sending in a bid or a proposal for this, and we can convert it to a project, which allows us to carry all this information over into the projects menu. It's going to give it a project number and allow you to get started there. So that's our opportunities section. Again, not something you have to be using, but can be really, really useful to help you pursue those business development opportunities and keep an eye on things as they develop. So any questions at the moment on opportunities?
No questions on opportunities.
Great, then we're getting close, guys. Our next menu is projects, and we're going to be diving a lot deeper here the next time we have a Flex webinar. We'll be looking at how to create a new project and how to manage that. So I'm going to just go over this briefly today, but much like the opportunities menu, this is where I would come to view my existing projects. I could search through, I can create new projects here, which we'll do next time. And I can toggle between my open and my favorite projects. So I can see all open projects that I have access to based on my permissions level and my facilities access. Or I can view just my favorites. Now, the question there is, how do I turn an open project into a favorite project? To do that, I would click on the project name to open up the project. And you're going to have a little star right up here where you can toggle on and off. If that star is gold, that's a favorite project. If I uncheck it, that's not a favorite project. That way, when I'm back here on the project overview list, I can toggle to my favorites to see just those projects that I'm involved in currently that are, a priority for me or that I need to view often. Not much we're going to go over there. Like I said, we'll be getting much deeper into how to create and manage projects in that next session. So from here, we want to talk about the transactions tab. This is where I can view all existing financial transactions across all projects. So this is a great place to come in and filter through. Note that this page auto filters to transactions for today only. So if you come in here and it says there are no transactions on file, really what it's telling you is there are no transactions on file today. If you'd like to see a larger time span, you come here to your filter. Notice it's auto filtered to today. So I can go ahead and open that up and say, I'd like to see all transactions for the month. We've got 4 transaction types available. These are the 4 types of transactions you can create in RedTeam. Employee expenses and timesheets, should you choose to use those features, vendor invoicing, and customer billing. You've got lots of other search filters you can use here if needed, but I'm going to go ahead and just filter and hide. I want to see all transactions from November. And we can see we've just got a couple of them in here. You're going to see the transaction type and number, right? So those first 2 letters are telling you this is an EE, an employee expense, ET for employee timesheet. You'll also see the VI for vendor invoice or CB for customer bill. You're going to see the basic information here on those transactions. And really, there's not a whole lot more to it, especially if you're using one of our integrated accounting softwares. These transactions are going to be flowing in terms of, this database is linked up to QuickBooks. These transactions should be flowing to QuickBooks automatically, or if applicable to Sage. But if you're not using one of our integrated accounting softwares, if you're using something like QuickBooks Desktop, you have the ability to filter here for transactions. And then from our view icon, you'd have the ability to export a file that's compatible with QuickBooks Enterprise, QuickBooks Desktop, to allow you to upload those transactions and help prevent double entry, right? So there's still a little bit of manual work to be done there, but this page can be really useful for those who are not using an integrated accounting software. Last thing you want to know here is that the new option allows you to add adjusting entries, which are transactions that are going to hit the project budget for a particular project, but you didn't necessarily create an associated document within RedTeam, an expense or a timesheet or whatever the case may be. I can come in here and make manual job cost entries, either one at a time right here, or I can import job cost transactions down here. This option is easy to miss, but really valuable if you need to bring in historical job costs to a project that was already in progress before you joined us with RedTeam. You can download a spreadsheet, bring in 20, 30, 40 transactions at a time across multiple projects. And we're going to go ahead and apply those actual costs to your project budget without you having to recreate all of those invoices or bills. So that's our transactions menu. Any questions at all here? Otherwise, we're just going to look quickly through configuration and apps.
Not seeing any questions.
Great. Then just another couple minutes here, guys. Configuration is not something I'll talk too much about now. Just know that this is where your system administrators will come to make changes to your database settings. So if you're an administrator, this is where you come to make those changes. There's a lot of information in here, and you can get some great information from our help center on how to make the changes you need to make. If you're ever confused, you can always reach out to our chat or log a support ticket to have someone help you out with making changes to your database settings as needed. And then our apps menu here is our last stop for the day. This shows all of the software applications that we currently integrate with. So again, we have some webinars in the Help Center that can help you understand better how some of these integrations work. But really, this is where you would come to connect if you are using one of these softwares, and this is where you would come to manage that connection. If I use QuickBooks Online or Level Set, I can click on these cards to open up settings and manage that integration as needed. But for more information, like I said, you can definitely check out our Help Center and look at those webinars and some of our training videos to understand how those integrations work. But that should do it for today. Any questions at all on anything we've covered before we wrap it up?
Not seeing any questions so far.
Looking good. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate you joining us. Again, this has been our webinar on RedTeam Flex Navigation. So this was our project startup part 1 session. If you join us again, down the line, we're going to have, I think 2 weeks from now, our project startup part 2. That's going to cover project creation and pre-construction. So it's been great talking with you today. Hope you have a great weekend.